Hey guys, Iceycat here. Today we're going to be doing the Q&A video that I promised you guys in exchange for reaching the 200,000 subscriber mark. I did ask for you guys to submit to me a bunch of questions, and over the last day or so I've been collecting those and just wanted to bring a few of those to you. So let's go ahead and start with the first of those. Stefan on YouTube asks, how long would you play Siege, and if you quit, what would you move on to? I'm just going to play Siege as long as it's still a popular game. They have announced that they are going to be trying to make content for it over the next 5 to 10 years and trying to keep it going that long. They've been also having a lot of controversial changes right now, so we'll see if they can actually live up to that promise. But as long as the game keeps going, I'm going to stick with it. As far as moving on to something else, I really don't think I will be. Just because I have a full-time job outside of this and a wife and kids, and I don't really have the time to get into a whole other game and learn the ins and outs of it, and really break things down for other things. So I think that my channel is just always going to be sort of based around Rainbow Six. I might occasionally touch on something else, but for the most part, that's just kind of what we're going to stick with. Next up, we've got these couple of points. First one is from TL Tranan on YouTube, and he says he hopes Wifeycat is on the mend soon, as well as Jose saying, how many years have you been together with your wife, and what surgery did she go through and why? So in my video the other day for Ella's teaser trailer, I mentioned that the reason that it was going up kind of late was because we were here doing some medical procedures for my wife, and the reason that we're out here, first of all, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the whole Wifeycat comment. That is absolutely hilarious. My wife loves that, and that's going to become like a now inside joke between us. So thank you so much for that. That's great. I also want to say I am completely blown over by all of the supportive comments that I've gotten from you guys about that. I was a little worried even mentioning that in the first place because YouTube comments can just be a very toxic kind of an environment. But I decided to mention it because it's honest, and I do try to be real with my community. And you guys are just absolutely great, giving us, your blessings and your prayers and just wishing us well. And it's been so great to hear that. I actually don't mind answering what it was that we're out here for, especially because of that reception. And so the reason we're out here is we are getting a treatment for my wife's chronic illness. She has chronic neurological Lyme disease. Now, a lot of people don't know necessarily what that is. Lyme disease is a tick-borne infection. And if you get it and you know that you've been bitten by a tick and you get a 10-day antibiotic regimen, you're probably going to be okay. But if you get bit by a tick and you don't know it, and that tick did carry Lyme disease, and then because you didn't know it and you never got treated, that Lyme disease breeds inside of you for years. And the bacteria, it's actually called spirochetes. These spirochetes grow inside of the tissue in a person's body, and they just spread all throughout the system. Years go by because you never knew that you had been infected by it. Then it begins to affect things on a very deep level, neurologically. And different people have different manifestations of some of the symptoms depending on what parts of the body it infects and how your body reacts to it. But in the case of my wife, it really affected her deeply on a neurological level, on a muscular level. She has difficulty walking. Even just from one end of the house to the other can sometimes be very, very difficult. It is accompanied by seizures, intense chronic pain, migraine, sensitivity to bright sounds, to bright lights and loud sounds. It's a very debilitating condition. And again, it affects some people more severely than others. There is no cure for Lyme disease, but there is remission, which is why we're out here. We are engaged in part of a stem cell program that has a 85% success rate for people with this condition to, again, there's no cure, but to bring them into remission, hopefully, a permanent remission if possible. And it's something that's a little controversial. There's a lot of, at least perceived controversy. People are confused about stem cells. This is not embryonic stem cells. There's a lot of people that are very concerned with that. And also for our religious beliefs and personal beliefs, we didn't want to go with embryonic stem cells. These are actually adult stem cells that are harvested from her own body. Because that goes along with the accordance of our beliefs and personal positions on the matter, but it also is a good thing because it comes from the host's own body. There is no rejection. If you were to get stem cells from another person or another source, there could be a rejection possibility. This way there isn't. So again, we're very optimistic with the 85% success rate that the procedure has that we will see a full remission here. So that's kind of what's going on with my wife's condition and why we're out in California at this time pursuing this. Next question comes from Hunter of Maya on YouTube, and they ask, do you think the delay was appropriate after the first delay, and was Operation Health worth it? It's hard as an end user, right? As somebody that plays the game and experiences the game to kind of deal with, first Hong Kong was delayed for 3 months while Operation Health was announced. And then toward the end of Operation Health, now we're being told, hey, it was coming out on August 29th, and now it's not coming out till September 5th. So it's an extra 1 week delay. And it's like, well, what's a week? Well, what's a week after 3 months of delay? It's kind of like one more thing. And now they've announced like the changes to the map rotation and the way that that's all going to be different. And it's definitely frustrating as a player to be on this end of the experience. But I do know that the development team doesn't make these decisions lightly, and they're not doing it just to like mess with people. As much as it might feel like that for some of us, they are doing it because these are things that for whatever reason it might need to be done on their end. Now, maybe some of that reason is poor planning or, just problems that were in the game that could have been corrected earlier. We don't know, but the fact is that they are trying to pursue something that's a more stable release for all of us going forward, and they are laying the infrastructure for years worth of future content. So, we can support them at least as far as the delays and things like that are concerned. The changes to the map playlist and things like that are something that may or may not be down that same kind of a road. Some of it seems like it might be with the size limitations on their data storage that they said. Other reasons as far as accommodating new players or trying to use the same map pool that ESL does seem to have nothing to do with that and are, completely opinion based. You can decide whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for yourself. But I think overall, Operation Health will have been worth it if we get a more stable game as a result in the end. Mr. Zebro on YouTube wants to know what inspired me to start YouTube. YouTube is something that I completely fell into by accident. It was, I shouldn't say by accident. The success of it was an accident. I started following the game when it first came out because I loved all the Rainbow Six games that came before it. I played a lot of Rainbow Six Raven Shield. I absolutely loved that game, spent years playing it. So when a new title was announced, I was very excited and I was following it. I joined the subreddit back when it was only like less than 1,000 people on it. The game hadn't even hit alpha yet when I started following it. And at that time, absolutely nobody was covering news and information on it. I think the most that was covered on YouTube at that point had been people that had seen the E3 trailer the year before that was, getting people psyched about it. And they shared that, and that was kind of like the extent of it. But there was nobody reporting on a consistent basis. And I had been playing a little bit of Call of Duty Ghosts and had been interested at that time following some of the YouTubers that had done that and thought that what they did reporting on the game was kind of an interesting thing. I'd never done anything like that before, and I decided to try my hand at it. So when new things were coming out about Rainbow Six, I would just make a little video and put it up there, not trying to become successful at YouTube, never even imagining that it would be possible, just simply wanting to be part of the growing, very small burgeoning community that was developing around this new game. And it just kind of led from one thing to another and sort of turned into something that was, I'm blessed to say, was a success. And that's kind of how it started. David on Twitter wants to know, why is my gameplay so slow? Okay, so this is a question that I want to address because it comes up all the time. Different content creators will give you different things. Okay, so you can have content creators that are based around gameplay. Great examples of this are like Serenity or Macy J. I mean, these are fantastic players who are amazingly skilled at the game. And if you just want to see fantastic gameplay, those are the people to watch. Then you've got other people that are based around, their experience is like really cool editing or montages, or maybe it's comedy based. Somebody like Russian Badger, or take your pick. There's a lot of really good content creators that way that maybe they're good at the game, maybe they're not good at the game, but it doesn't matter. But their thing is a style and presentation. Then there's other content creators that try to inform you, and that's kind of the genre that I fall into. I try to give you information. Some people do walkthroughs or tips and tricks. I can do those a little bit sometimes, but I really try to be a reporter for the community. So news and information, what's the latest thing that's happening in the game, the newest developments. I try to keep you informed in the community. As such, it's not required that I be like an amazing player at the game. And in fact, there's on the internet, there's a lot of this perspective that's like, well, either you're a pro league player or you're copper trash. And, you know, that's just stupid. There's total middle ground in the game. If you look at the bell curve of the way that the game is set up, most people fall between high bronze and high gold. And there's just this huge curve of where they fall, and between bronze and gold is where most of the people in the game are. And just to say, you know, you're either top tier or you're just bottom feeder trash is just, it's stupid. But that's just the way the internet is. And here's the thing: I don't make any apologies for that. I'm okay with being completely average, even slow. I miss shots, so what? You know, people act like everything that they do would be a one-shot headshot all day, all the time, and that's not even reality. But it's easy to comment when you're a keyboard warrior and, you know, you're ripping on people for that. But I don't mind that I'm average or even a little below average. I own that. I'm okay with that. And here's the other thing too is I'm 40 years old. I have 3 kids. My oldest kid is going to be 19. And that's actually how old a lot of the players that play this game are. Is they're between, like, you know, 16 and, you know, 21, 22 or whatever. So many of the people that watch my videos or play this game are old enough to actually be of the same age as my oldest kid. So when you're talking about like how bad I am, it's like, well, you know, I don't know, how good is your dad at playing this game? It's a competitive game, and I don't play it for competition. I actually play it for fun, but there's a lot of competitive people in it. So I'm not necessarily going to be in that, you know, top tier setups. Even looking at my own gameplay from, you know, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, I've noticed that as I get older, my response time is slower. My reaction speeds are slower. I'm more prone to miss shots. I used to, you know, when I used to play, like, you know, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the first one, or Modern Warfare 2, back when those first came out, I was able to respond to things a lot faster, and I was just simply more accurate. You know, now there's more hesitation in my gameplay, and that's just as a result of getting a little bit older to a certain extent. It's also a result of how much time I spend playing the game. I had recently interviewed Serenity, and, you know, I mean, this is a guy who's just like in his very, very early 20s. So he is on top of his game. He's a single guy. He's making a career out of this, right? He said in his interview with me that he was anyway, playing up to 16 hours a day. Now he's decided to cut back on that a little bit because it's gotten burned out for him. But so imagine somebody that's a pro player or a very, very good player that makes their living playing this game, either as a content creator or as a competitive player or however it is, putting 16 hours in the game, even if it's not 16 hours, what if it's just 10 hours a day into this game? Call it 4 or 5 days a week. That's 40 hours. That's a full-time job's worth of commitment to just playing the game. I have a full-time job. It is not YouTube. And I spend, so 16 hours a day. 16 hours is about what I put into Rainbow Six in a month. I play, you know, on Saturday nights for 4 or 5 hours. So that's, you know, 4 days a month. If I can pick up an extra day here and there, hey, great, it happens. But I can only consistently play, you know, Saturday nights for 4 or 5 hours. So that skill gap, I don't have time to develop into these people like Macy J and Serenity that are just, they're able. They've centered their careers around this is what they do for a living. I have a full-time job. I have a wife with a chronic illness, and that has demands of its own, not just being a spouse of a person, but also being a spouse of a person you have to help, you know, with their daily needs. I have 3 kids, you know, trying to have a social life. I just don't have the time to invest into just being like, yes, I'm in front of this TV all the time, you know, 10, 12, 16 hours a day. I can't do that. So I'm not going to be like really, really fantastic at the game when I'm only playing, you know, one night a week for a few hours. Adam on Facebook wants to know, what do you think the new ops will do to the meta of the game? It's good because when the game first started out, I feel like it was a lot more centered around strategy. Like defense would try to set up a strategy that offense would have to try to crack that shell and get in and achieve the objective. Since about season 3 last year, so Skull Reign, things really became roamer oriented. And for attackers, they became aggressive rushing. That just became the new strategy, was just, speed, hits, these like quick hits and withdraws and these kinds of things. And it turned the game from being a lot about strategy to being a lot about gameplay, gunplay, fast, attacks and things like that. And strategy is still part of it. I'm not saying it isn't, or I'm not saying that it can't be played that way. But I'm just saying the overall meta has really become about just how fast you are and how accurate you are, which I don't feel is the spirit of what Rainbow Six Siege was meant to be. That's definitely like a Call of Duty thing, or some of these other kinds of games. But it's definitely more about, like, you've got this team that's set up, and how do you crack that defense? How do you beat that strategy, and not just basing that around how fast and how accurate you are. So these operators are going to make the attackers have to kind of slow down. They're going to have to check their surroundings. They're going to have to be a little bit more careful. You can't just toss in 4 flashbangs, run in, and just pre-fire blind corners, and brrr, you won. You're going to have to slow down. You're going to have to think about things a little bit more. That's also going to give more weight to positioning. And angles are always a very important thing in the game, but they are going to become even more important, because if rushing and roaming isn't going to be as effective, well, at least rushing anyway, that it's just going to take a little bit of a shift towards things and slow things down a little bit. I mean, think about it. You've got Legion with 7 invisible mines. You've got Ella with several of her own mines that, while not cloaked, can still be kind of put out. And then you combine that with the other existing trap operators like Frost and Capcan and whatever, throw barbed wire into the mix, and now you've got attackers that can no longer just blindly rush in and just do crazy fast things. They've got to slow down and take their time, and that's a good thing. Todd on Facebook wants to know a little bit about my setup for editing and how I do that while being on the road. So that's a really good question, because I need to keep everything mobile. The reason for that is that I do most of my editing at work on my lunch break. So I get my lunch break, I will go out to the car, record a voiceover, and then I have my laptop there. I will work on that until my lunch break is over, and then upload it at the end of my workday. Having all of that happen, everything has to be compact, mobile, carried with me. And so I carry my laptop bag with me, and in there is my laptop is a Lenovo Y700. I do all of my editing on there on Premiere Pro. It's the same laptop that when I do my gameplay, I record my footage on using an Elgato HD60. It records right onto that laptop, and then I have that footage for when I need it, the next day if I need to edit something together. Aside from that, I also use a Tascam DR100 field recorder for recording my audio on. Again, I just go out to my car with that. I have plugged into there just like a generic shotgun microphone that I had from an old Sony camcorder. And really, that's about it. Right now, for instance, for footage, I'm just recording this on my cell phone. So the microphone quality is going to sound a little different on here versus what I normally use, because this is just the mic that's on the cell phone, not my normal handheld microphone. But for purposes of being mobile and just recording this really quickly, that's just what I do. So I'm able to knock out the content that I do in an hour. If I need to work on it a little bit more after I get home, maybe another second hour to work on it or whatever. It's all just super, super portable. So that's kind of how I keep my workflow going. Jackson on Twitter wants to know, which of the 3 new operators looks to be my favorite? It's a really hard question to answer. I haven't played with any of them yet, so I really don't know. But just on what I'm seeing so far, I'm really interested in seeing how Ella plays. I like that she can deploy these mines kind of anywhere that she needs to. And Legion shares some of that interest for me too, but I'm a little concerned with the fact that there's so many of them and they can be cloaked and hidden all over the place, and I'm a little worried that might be overpowered, but I have no way of knowing for sure until I actually play it. Ying also seems like a good operator too, but I think I'd have to give the edge to Ella. I also really love her weapons loadout. The Scorpion is a great SMG. People that have reported from Gamescom that have actually played with it say it's super good. I'm excited to see how good her new shotgun is. It sounds like it might be a beast. So I'm really excited for Ella. I can't wait to try out that new character and see where that goes. So I'm going to wrap it up here. It's been kind of a longer video, but I wanted to really go in depth with some of these answers for you and give you guys some really honest answers to these questions and kind of have that dialogue with you guys. Hopefully we'll get a chance to do this again when we reach a next subscriber milestone. And in the meantime, if you want to ask me any other questions or just keep in touch, you can reach out to me at Iceycat25 on either Facebook or Twitter, or as always, leave comments below the video. In addition to that, if you would please like and subscribe, that would be much appreciated. I do mostly news and information, so if you want to stay up to date on that, as soon as I upload the newest thing and you want to be aware of it right away, then do please click that notification icon. You'll get like an immediate heads up when I upload. Other than that, guys, we'll talk to you later and see you next time.